Well, hello there and welcome. Welcome back for those who've been following this. This is the painting Lollipop that I've been working on. And today, or now, I'm going to work on the foliage because I like to bring the painting up to the same level all the time. So I've got paint on the rocks, I've got paint in the water in the background, and I've got paint on the figure now. So I need to pull this up also so that I don't have all these big white patches there, because now this is the part that's most distracting. Although it's an interesting time because what it is you get to see the abstract shapes a little bit more with this pattern kind of going like it is. But, you know, let's move forward with this thing. Now I wanted to review what I was talking about at the beginning of the series where I made these drawing sketches here. Okay, they're just two different tone studies that a lot more could have been done. And even though I told you that this is not my favorite strong point to kind of be doing, they are useful and stuff because the palette, as you can see as I move it down for the artwork, the palette is nowhere near the same, okay? So in that respect, I haven't done myself any favors because I'm not even using the particular colors that I threw out quickly in the pastels. However, when I look at this is a high key thing that I thought I was wanting to do because I was going to try to do something light and happy and childlike maybe. And then this is more of my normal thing with the high contrast that I love so much. But it's interesting because what this tells me is I started this on a gray paper that I always used, just a piece of paper that was used inside of a IKEA frame. So I did that because it's quick to paint, it's quick to do drawings on a toned paper because I can add the light and I can add dark and instantly I've got 3 tones, so it's a little bit more efficient. So the one thing that I noticed when I went back to study these and say why did I even bother doing them is that on the figure piece, I've probably mentioned it when I was doing the video series on painting Castelvecchio. You always want to remember what the idea is, and everything that you do should support the original idea. So in this case, I'm back to that again, and I have the subject of the sentence of this piece of artwork is the little boy and his fascination with nature. Okay, but the little boy is the key part. He's the subject. When I did this sketch here, and you see the background is a light tone compared to all the lights that are hitting his body on this edge. And what it does is the background, in a sense, blends in with the body of him. I don't necessarily need the background to be really, really dark to contrast with him and throw off. Emphasize the light that is in the highlighted side of his figure, but I started to feel that this is not enough contrast here to put the focus onto the lollipop or onto the edge of his body, and the focus ends up going into the high point of contrast, which becomes the river against the darker trees, okay? Because when you squint your eyes, which really gives you a lot of good information on stuff, you see that you go the red against the white, but the red against the gray. I mean, the red, I'm calling it red, but what I really mean is the dark skin tone of the figure. This against everything else is the highlight. But do I want this abstract shape here of half of the figure in shadow? I mean, the figure in shadow, which not really half, but anyway, you know what I mean, the dark. Do I want you to follow this line on there, or do I want to do something different? I'd like to focus on the whole figure and not just on the dark. So I like this sketch in that the river behind him is darker. I don't necessarily like the cold blues and greens against his warm skin, but so I don't need to use that part of the sketch. And really, I was just grabbing pastels up, and for me, I want to try to explore the color thing, but in general, I'm more interested in the tone and the touching. So the other thing I'm getting from this is, do I want this dark? Because what I've done is I've basically taken this sketch and pumped all the contrast up. So I don't really like the dark here because I've got the same problem. Your eye goes to the point of high contrast, which frankly is going to be these dark leaves here against the lighter of the skin near the knee, and this is the high point of contrast. So it puts the eye down here. Do I want the eye down there? Not really. I want the eye to travel around and see all the joyous things that I'll be including into this image, but I want the eye more up near the head and the face, okay? So to do that, I need to make everything here else less contrasty. I can have contrast, and I want contrast because I want the things to be interesting, but I need really to keep the focus here, okay? So for right now, when I go into the foliage, I want to put in some colors that are going to be darker than the river behind it, because I like this idea of the framing of this picture, but I need to make them not so contrasty as this, and maybe closer to actually this first one here, so I get the results. So right now, let's go play with things. Set that aside. I picked back up my palette because these are the greens that I actually have in my studio right now, and I don't have time and don't want to go shopping. But I have these, again, whoops, a green with a white mixed in it, but you can see it's kind of a cold green. And then I have these, this is sap green, this is some sort of blue green that I got from another tube, I don't even know the name of the brand. And this is my green umber from Old Holland, I think it is. And then, of course, the white here, because I'm going to stick with the flake white until I finish this first layer of paint all over the wood. And then I have a feeling I'm going to switch to the titanium white, but we'll see how when we get there, because I do tend to change my mind quite a bit on things as things develop. So right now, everything's dark, and I didn't do the pre-mixing thing that I had done for the flesh tones a bit. So I'm going to play So standing back and looking at this painting, I want to start working in an area that is more beneficial than not. And what I mean by that is most of this is stuff that I had done first, okay? And so it's drier. It's also thinner painted. And then the rocks I did with a palette knife, so they're chunkier and thicker, which means they're going to take longer time to dry. And as I mentioned when I was checking my drawing on the figure part here, is I could tell that some of this was still wet because I was banging into some of it and going, oh yeah, that's juicy on my hands. So this part down here has more wet pieces in it. This has more dry. Even though these rocks up here are probably a little bit wet, the fact that they're further in the back distance, I actually wanted to have thinner paint there so I wouldn't have so much texture pulling your eye up into the high texture space. I wanted to leave the markiness, to leave it feeling rock-like, but I didn't want to have it physically come forward. This is the coming forward part, okay? So in essence, what I'm saying all of this stuff to get to is I'm going to start with the leaves here and up above his head, because also I did his hair in raw umber and white, and so it's not entirely dry, but it's much drier than the figure with the skin tones and the rocks. So I'll start up here and we'll get going. I have to wash some brushes. Thanks. So let's talk a little bit of practicalities. I went out and wiped all my brushes down, rinsed them out really well with the spirits, and dried them off with a paper towel. I did not wash them with soap and water because I don't want the soap to be into this. And even though I'm like a lot of painters and we have a ton of brushes, we also tend to use the same ones over and over again. So when I'm in the middle of the day, I don't wash the brushes at all. And even sometimes at night, I don't wash the brushes with soap and water and all that. I don't like what it does to the environment. And so most of the times I just wash them off, wipe them off with here using a clean paper towel until I see that the color is gone, and then I wipe a little bit more to make sure I can get off as much of any of the material in there. Then I kind of reshape them, and then I stick them in my little holder and let them do their thing overnight. But every once in a while they need a good thorough cleaning to not have stuff build up, but also because the paint gets pushed into the ferrule, I guess it's called, and it ends up clogging up, and then you lose the flexibility of your brush and you lose the qualities that it has to give you. So I washed these all and cleaned up there. The other thing I decided to do was that my mineral spirits now has full of skin tone, and although it looks sort of like a coffee of some sort, maybe. So I'm going to let this sit just as I did the other one for the other color scheme. I'm going to let this sit. The paint will eventually settle down, the pigment will settle down into this, and then I'll have a clear liquid, and I can pour this off into a new container. Because you know the only reason to eat food in jars is so that we can have the jars, right? Okay, so I've set this aside. Let that sit, and I'm not in a hurry for it because, you know, the fact is that when I go to paint the next layers on the skins, it's possible to use that again because I haven't contaminated it with other pigments that I don't like. So I've got my new clean, I guess you can't see through the blueberry jam thing, but anyway, it's the clean odorless spirits that's not actually odorless. Well, I don't know why. So I'm going to use that. I showed you the palette earlier. Alright, so I want to start up here. Now, remember at the beginning I spoke about how when I did the drawing here, I wanted to get a few of these leaves sort of in a circular or elliptical pattern to emphasize the design quality of the circular canvas, the circular lollipop, the circle of the rocks here, with the center being, you know, way down here. And I just want to throw in a few things that are circular, but not beat you over the head with it. I don't want everything to be circle, circle, circle. And there are a lot of triangles here, obviously, that I get to play off of those shapes. But that is part of what's fun about designing things. So as I redraw some of this stuff in, I'm going to be looking at my reference because for me, I like being with nature. I can't be with this particular nature because it's been years since I've been to Pontremoli where I snapped this image. Anyway, I want to combine, even in a subtle way compared to the viewer thing, the experience of what the model is, in this case it's a photograph, and also trying to design stuff. So to that end, let me put my little guy up here out of the way, picking a dry spot. And again, my tape is not so terribly sticky because I don't want it to leave too much any material on here. And let's see, for most of the leaves, some of them may be larger, but most of them are going to be like this. So I want to pick, I could use a large brush like this, and maybe I should. I think, yeah. I mean, this gives me the feeling I like to twist them on edge to do things. I think I'll start with this larger one though, and in case I feel frustrated that it's not working, then I'll shift to a smaller one. I may put it in front of there, and you can see the difference in size. Okay? Stickiness on that. I've got to get rid of that. It's just annoying. I do find that if something annoys me, I have to get rid of it or take care of the need so that I don't have it distracting me. Alright, now I'm going to start with some of the leaves that are down here, and the reason is because I really want to stand back once I put the color on and decide what I like. Do I like the tone? But more importantly, I'm a little concerned about the color relationships of the whole piece of art, okay? So I want to start with a dark, the dark green umber. And this is by General, this is a transparent paint. So I can see that there's a branch there. I should actually put the branch. Yeah, let me do that with a lighter green. Actually, I want to put the raw umber brown into that. I think I've got some raw umber left from last time, so I'll just do this to help me remember what I'm doing here. So relating that and putting my drawing in. Whoa, you can see that that's too much spirits because it painted on too liquidy and too thin. So that's another reason I don't really like to store my brushes. I mean, a lot of times I set them into the mineral spirits because I'm busy with stuff and I don't want to forget them and have them all of a sudden get okay, I want this leaf to come down here. I wanted this to be kind of a circular shape in an opposite direction. So let's pull this a little more down this way. And I want to put a little bit more light into that. So the other thing I realized is that this was mostly transparent paint straight out of the tube, and didn't have a whole lot of white in it. And I think that it's this Gamblin Flake White that's giving the oily quality to my painting that I don't like. So I'm pretty sure that for the moment, when I actually switch over to something else, I'm going to be using a white that doesn't have that much oil in it, because I really don't like the distraction when I'm in museums to see a gorgeous piece of art and then have this was going to have a circle, have the distraction of that. Yeah, this is interesting. This branch, in reality, according to this photo reference, just stops right here. But what it is it's curving back away from me. So I can put a little bit of a curve here, and then now I don't really need it to be as thick as what I'm doing. It means I'm pushing too hard on the brush. And I don't want it to be a straight white either, so I need to mix enough paint that I'm actually painting with paint, as I said to you, is my way of doing things all the time, which is not always a good thing. Okay, and going down into his foot. So I know a lot of the plein air people and a lot of people are so much more excuse me, much more prolific than I am and much faster in their thinking, and I have come to accept that my brain excuse me, my brain needs time to process things and to think about things, and I've just accepted that's who I am. But in that case, I like the fact that stone carving, and I like working with the oils where things are slow. And I always blame my changing my activity every 2 or so hours on the Texas weather, where I used to live in Texas, because I would stone carve in the morning when it was cool, I would stone carve in the evening when it was cool, or at least I didn't have the direct sun right on me. And goodness, I hope I'm not allergic to this spirit stuff. And then I would paint in the afternoons, because that meant I could go inside and away from the sun. And oh, he's too fat on here, so I want to wipe them out. So I've taken a clean brush with a straight edge going across here, and that'll help me refine a line. Versus a rounded edge, sometimes you get a little twist in your wrist and it doesn't do the shape that you want. So I'm going to emphasize the circle, so I'm going to take it off from this size. So maybe you want to think of this as painting in reverse, because more like sculpting, I suppose. You're removing material. Okay, but I want to get that thinner. And then do the same with this one. Now this one, I had a nice arc going in here, so I want to emphasize that a little more. It's not a perfect arc because it's an arc in perspective. So it's actually going to go up higher here and then come down, you know, like this, with a short, sharper curve going on here. You just don't see it wrapping around here. And anyway, so I want to get that thinner. That's why it's nice that it doesn't dry as quickly as acrylic, because I can make up my mind as I go, sort of thing. And you know, if I were smart, I would have done it thin in the first place, because that's what I was attempting to do, but I was being lazy and using that big brush and pushing on too hard, obviously. Because obviously when you push onto a brush, you're flattening it and getting more of the surface to contact with your canvas. Or, as I said, I'm painting on wood for those of you who might be joining me now. This is a maple board series. I bought this in the United States, a series of these maple boards, and I never ended up getting to paint on them, and then I ended up getting divorced and I moved to Italy, where frankly I can afford to live, but traveled all over the States looking where I had family and stuff to think about where I could make a new life, and I came back here, and I do love it here, really. It's not easy all the time, but I have people who are helping me, and it's just an amazing thing of gratitude for that. All right, keep my clean brush clean but dry, so I don't want this thin to hardener. Put it over there, and let's see what I was working on here. I don't want too many spirits again. All right, so I'm going to see what this darkest green looks like, although I have a feeling I'm really not going to want the darkest green. But I'll also be looking at how cold and warm it is, and all right. So we start off right about here, and I'm going to do, I don't want to hide the round shape there. I can already see that's going to be way too dark. So let's just put a little round one here. If you've studied trees, you'll know that, or you'll notice, I should say, that that white really blues up that green, doesn't it? You'll notice that as the new growth, the end of the branches, the leaves are going to be smaller than they are in the rest of the tree, of the ones that are further back, closer into the trunk. I mean, relatively speaking, because you're always also going to have the situation of breaking this up. See, I really like breaking this up here. Well, the new growth, the baby growth, they're going to be small, and then they, just like everything else, you mature, you get larger, and then you do your falling thing, and you're done. Okay, so let's just cover that puppy up. That's a little too pointed. I want to make that round here. So what I did right there is just opposite of what I just told you to do. I want to make those a little bit more even in dimension, but I'm breaking up. I think I want to pull this maybe a little bit further out here. I don't need to see this whole rock here, but I do want to see maybe a little bit of it. So let's put a little bit of, and I want this leaf to go behind this one to also give me some ideas of depth, and I didn't really want to kiss with this rock. So, all right, let's just do this. Let's go back here and overlap this other rock here a wee bit. And then I get my size back. I can still show some of this inner rock that's here. I can go up behind here and do this. Okay. Then I'm going to decide the direction of my strokes, which I think I want to be, let's see, I haven't really seen it. I can't really see in the picture how the veining and stuff goes in here, but typically you go from the connection point down to the middle, and then you do some sort of branching out here. But, and then of course I don't have this connected to this lid here, but all right, so this is enough for me to go back and stand back and take a look at it and see if I'm liking the relationships on stuff, okay? All right, there is no right or wrong answer. First of all, it's all a matter of opinion, just as what your taste is really. But I felt as though this was too light in comparison to tone on this, and I want to make this stand out. I don't want it confused that it's actually looking, I don't want to confuse it. Now I may change the color of the river here into a more of a brown thing, and then this would stand out from the color. But really I'm not interested in the color so much. I want to have, tonally wise, I want this to be darker than the river behind it, and also darker than the rock. I also felt that this leaf here was just too much contrast and too dark. So I want to lighten this a bit. I can go darker here because also, when you have a bunch of leaves, you don't have as much light traveling through them, so it would naturally be darker where you have a cluster versus when you have a single one draping down, then you see more of the translucency of it. So I'm going to be putting basically a similar tone into both of these, lighten this one, darken this one, but as I go up here I can darken. The other thing that's nice about the darkening is it really does act more like a frame around the painting, so, and pulls some of this in. So let me get going on that. As far as the blue-green goes, I think that's fine. So I may stick with the green umber at this point, just at least as a base point. And then later on I can go in and add other things to this. Okay. Alright, so maybe what I should do is lighten up the one that's behind it. It is kind of smart to paint the things behind, because then you can overlap by painting the things closer and closer and closer to you. Naturally get the overlap's easier to do. Whereas if I did this afterwards, as I did, I end up painting around this, and sometimes that kind of shows and it doesn't really look all that good. However, as I said, I wanted to put these first two in so that I could decide what the relationship is going to be. That may be too much white. And also I want to transition in tone for this. So I see on my original, it's not very clear, but it's actually, you know what I should do is put some yellow out. That's a Naples yellow. That's going to be a weak yellow. I think I want more of a yellow ochre. That's a warmer yellow, but also a darker one, and it's a more powerful thing. So I'm going to put a wee bit of yellow. I don't want to make this blue-green to have a lot of yellow, but I want, as I lighten it with the white, it goes blue, and I want to stay in the green family, but not have it go so cold. Okay, so there I've mixed a little bit warmer there. But it has a little bit of lightness here, which, goodness, making sense. Because the sun's coming from that way. I mean, there are a lot of different things you can say about stuff like that, but this is such a thick sort of paint, this flake white replacement. Okay, that's exaggerated, but yeah, it's really weird to me to paint with thick light. Okay, and then here I can do the same sort of thing if I want. Just put the lighter stuff in here and then go down. Okay, so they're more in a similar tone. I'm going to stand back, and then as I go down, I like the gradation that can happen here. That's too many wipes. Did you see how I put white in that one stroke? I ended up putting a lighter into that. See, and I just did that with dark again. I'll leave this, and I'm going to kind of curl this around because I don't want the light to hit too much at the tip of that. Okay. Let's get some of this to be... And again, this is the first painting, so I really don't need to fall in love with a lot of detail. I don't need to be putting in detail at this point. But at the moment, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And as I said, the smart painters will make their plan ahead of time and do these color sketches so that when they go into the real painting, they don't need to do all this decision making sort of at the last minute. But I find I enjoy it, so I'm going to stick with what I enjoy. You know, life's short. Okay. And I'm not as concerned about edges at this point, although I'm always thinking about them to some degree. So I'm going to clean up some of this stuff. I do want these to be a little bit sharper edges to pull them forward. I mean, in general. Alright, so I'm going to stand back and take another look. Change out my paper towels. And I've got too much glare from back where I am. It's a little cold, and what I've done is made it maybe a little too light, although I like the back leaf where it has the dark going in. So yeah, I'm going to play with that, but I think for now, because I may change the water a little bit, but I think for now I'm going to stick with the green umber with a little bit of yellow as it gets into the lighter, just to keep some sort of consistency in that. And all right, so with this in mind, I would like very much to, I'm going to clean this off so next time it's not so juicy wet. I don't want to be, I don't want to fight this flake white paint that's so gummy sticky. All right, so let's go back in here. Now now that I've made up my mind, I really should go mix up a bunch of different tones of this stuff. But some part of me knows I'm not going to. And my father said I shouldn't be so negative about myself and that I shouldn't ever say that I'm stupid or inefficient or anything to that sense. But the fact is, I don't have a problem knowing what my weaknesses are compared to the normal world. And again, as I've said before, a lot of this is understanding how your brain works and coming to make something that gives you the results that you want. And I don't know, I feel like my purpose here might be for those people that don't feel like they fit into the norm, even the artist norm, which I don't even know what that means, but you always hear artists are so different from other people. I don't know. Somebody else the other day actually tried to say, yes, that's creative mind. It's just so different. I thought, well, I've only been me my whole life, and I don't like the idea to say that every single human being doesn't have the ability to be creative, because it seems like that should be part of our God-given nature, if you want to call it that. So I don't know, I feel a bit odd with that. However, it does seem to be true at times that we do live different lives for sure. I don't want this to be totally parallel either. Let's call the whole thing off. Alright, so let's give a little space. Maybe that'll be a variety of things that are different. That was redundant, you know, because variety obviously would mean things that are different. And let's go down, not giving that a total kiss at the end, but make some of that overlap there. Okay. Now, again, I'm following the model, but not necessarily religiously. But I definitely am using it as an inspiration. And now, leaves often have a stem, and depending on the plant, because everything can be different, but leaves often come out in pairs and meet up at the same part on the different stems, at least the olive trees that I was just painting on my mural some time ago, so I'm aware of that. So right now I see in my reference there's a leaf that's coming out in front of this rock that's here, but it looks connected in the middle between this. It could be that way with the real tree, and unless I actually went and looked at this, but even here on this part of the branch here, it looks more like they're in pairs. Okay, so I don't want to steer too much from reality on that. And I'll pull this down. This is a curvy leaf at a different direction. That's going to add interest, because you don't want everything to be the same shape. Put a little variety into this, because, you know, and lengthwise, yeah, that could be doable. All right. However, where's my clean brush? Wipe this up a wee bit. It's not really important because I can come in with some other paint, but I want some of that rock showing through. All right. This clock is so noisy, I should turn it off. All right. What I'm seeing is a cluster of leaves here, and I didn't make this apparently large enough. But I just undid my white up at the top there, but that's okay. And that's more ocean with a leaf in behind there. And again, I'm going to smooth the edge off. I don't want to have a whole thick ridge of paint on the edge of this canvas. It's the wood. It's not a horrible thing because I can come back in and sand it down. But again, why should I make myself have more work than what I really want to do? So I'm going to walk by some of that. I don't mind if the color goes thin against it because then I have my options in. But okay, so I'm going to step back and see if I like that. Yeah, it could be all right. All right, so I want a little bit of variety in here, so I'm going to be pulling this in. Might make an even darker grouping that's behind some of this. And maybe that would be one leaf here on another branch that's behind. So get rid of this nasty halo thing situation. And I don't need to be specific about where it's connected because it's on a branch that you're just not going to see. And it looks like in my reference you see the stem everywhere, so this paint is going on quite thick. But all right. Then I have a nice little dancing piece that goes, I want to pull out. I don't really like this being so parallel, so I'm going to fatten it up going this way and probably dip down over this one more time. Again, it's the overlap that also gives our brain information about something being closer or further away from us, so you want to use these when I'm creating an illusion. And do I want that separate from that other group, or did I want to just combine it all up again? And take a step back. I think I'd like to combine it, but I also feel that I don't want to necessarily have it be exactly the same kind of green. So I'm going to pop a little bit of another dark green. Maybe I'll actually put this blue or green, mix it in with some sap. And then of course I want to mix it with the base color because I do want it to be a part of the same leaf family. And so that would be, put this in here. Do I want it darker than that? Maybe. And let's go here. But here I do want a differentiation between this leaf and that leaf, and that would be pulling up in this way. Maybe I'll leave it as if it's curving around. And now I want to give this some more roundy round so it looks like it's part of the same family of leaves. Okay. Okay, Not really sure what I think about it, but right now what I want to do is pull in the rest of this and make some shapes here that might be kind of fun to work with. And that means more green umber on my palette. So now I'm learning that, yeah, it's going to take me a bit. So now I need to stop being stingy with my paint on the palette, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using a lot of this for these leaves because I only got a few stuff done. So squish some more out, and then I'm also committed to doing more painting today, aren't I? Which is a good thing because I don't have that many days off from school. All right, let's see, let's come in. Let's do maybe a there's one. Now you notice that I left this white space. If I end up deciding I want to leave that there, I'll later put that back in with the river color. I don't like how parallel this is to that one. So I want to pull this back. It might be okay if I change some other shapes around it, but you know what I want to do is, I think, let me go ahead and stick some of this kind of riverish brown in here and move that angle a little bit, giving a little more roundy round to it, but also breaking up the parallelness of it. Everything doesn't need to be different. In some things, the parallel, it gives you a surprise because everything else is so changing, but you don't always know that till you get there. Because, you know, in my book, everything is true. Okay, so put that back in this way. And round that out. I don't think I want that perfectly even with the rock, although I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting obsessed about too much of the change, because sometimes I feel like if I try to be random, I end up being very controlled and predictable in my ways of breaking the rules. If that makes any sense. Okay, and again, I'm wanting the hard edges, so I'm good with this. Just want to develop the shape also. And leaves turn, they're not all going to be hitting me at the same time, so I want to be getting that play. And okay, so this one, I want to dip this down in here, and I can see from, what do I have on here? That's the brown, isn't it? I'll keep that here. That's a smaller one. Let me try this for a bit. I'm going to try, again, I want this to be the same family, so they have to be some similarities, but at the same time I want to get some variety in there. So I'm going to, that might be too light, mix some of this green, that color that I have that I told you has some white in it, and it's kind of a cold green anyway, but alright, so I'm going to come back down here for the dancing part, and I like what happened in the original thing. And I may not have done my original drawing. See, I've lost my original design, but the original design maybe wasn't doing anything to serve me, so I don't know, I could go back to it because I have pictures that I took, don't I? And let's take this. Still want it to be darker than the background, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. And I really want to think about strokes because this is potentially something I won't have to redo. And if I consciously put down my marks now, I can have something that's sort of loose at a time that works for me. That doesn't really look like it belongs anywhere, but the thing is I have to pull down some more of these branches. So let's go back to this other one here. Part of my goal is to cover up the white that I left, because I know that that means that was actually something that was part of my original design and something that I enjoy. So, okay, I want to put a little bit of warmth into that one as well. So mix some of this lighter green and yellow. And, ooh, that's a little too high chroma. Do you see how that just jumped right out at me? That's not a background color at all. So why are you putting it in, Kels? Get rid of it. I will. I'll get rid of it on my own due time. Right now I want to get the shape developed, because again, the shape is more important. I can deal with the color in a little bit. Okay, now it's too much parallel for my taste, but I'm trying to figure out a way to have this funky kind of leaf thing here happening without, it needs to be connected to the tree somehow. So let's see, how am I going to do this, baby? Let's make another leaf coming out here, perhaps. I don't know if that's going to work. Let's see. It's too much like stair steps. Don't really like that. So do I have a clean brush? Get rid of that as we go, and I don't have the light sticking out. Get rid of that halo while I'm at it. It's not the same color. Should go in with I have a brush with the burnt umber, don't I? Put in some of this burnt. Now I really want some dark at the rock base there, but I can do that at another time again as well. Right now I just want to get rid of the halo. And the umber is at least in the right color direction I want to go. Okay, the other thing is, while I'm doing this, let me go cover up some of this white so that I can just start anew with the whole design thing. Which is funny, because when you spend time on a design, you think, no, you should stick to it. You liked it, didn't you? Yeah. But, you know, be flexible. Push that up into the white there and cover that up. And then take this. And shove that off in there. I do want it lighter behind the leaves so the leaves show up in their shape. But at this point I can make it thinner because I have the white canvas underneath. And then pull off some material. So I just need enough to sort of glaze down the bright whites. And then go back in and soften these. Fix that drawing there. So already I like it, because even though it's not perfect, I stop having this white looking at me. Let me take a little bit of this and do the same up right above this rock here. Get rid of that white. but I want it to show up light, otherwise it's going to be confusing about the shapes of these. The thing that's so wonderful about leaves is it gives you the opportunity for dappled light and breaking up shapes into these funky little abstract kind of things. It's really kind of delightful, because otherwise you might have a solid green mass of the chioma of the tree. Oh, chioma is an Italian word, sorry. It's a big headdress. Alright, I don't really like the shapes that I have at this point right there. I don't know why, but maybe because it goes too much against the idea that I have of the triangles. 32 minutes, no way. I'm gonna have to do some editing, aren't I? Alright, so I think in that sense, let me try to pull this away. Now you see what happened. I can see that there's a physical ridge there on this, from this rock being painted, and the only cure that I know for that is to make the paint of this leaf here thicker than the paint of that, and then it all sort of works out. I'm going to pull this rounded out a bit and see if somehow that makes me happier with the shape of this. And maybe what it is this needs to be like a disc on its one side, not so pointy right there, but maybe a wee bit rounder here. And then this can overlap that one and put in a wee bit of a curve instead of a just straight vertical right down there. Although I think I intended for that to be going backwards. So this is going to go maybe like that. Does that look all right? Let's see what I've got going in the mass. It kind of works. I feel as though I need something either here or maybe here. But I'm going to leave it at this point because, as I said, I need my brain to think about the shapes and what they're doing. I don't know if I want to fan brush that down yet because that's going to also, that high texture will pull it in forward. So I think what I'm going to focus on now is going into these other places and attempting, I don't want that much of a ridge on that. Alright, so that's my clear. Let me keep that clean. Now, where's my umber brush? Oh wait, let me put a few more umber out. Had a little exercise break because you got to stretch those muscles, and I'm still working on my knee therapy. So, turning back here, I didn't like this part up here being so black, so I want to make it come down, put it on the other side here as well, and then it seems that the leaves maybe has some more form. Alright, I want to add in either rock or, yeah. So I'll leave my green out, but I'll get my blue palette back up here for a sec. And different brush. I want some of these grays. This is, if I had a real palette, you see, this is kind of silly that I'm doing this. I'm a bit like an old professor at times because I just resist. I just add on to whatever it is I'm doing because I don't want the distraction of trying to do whatever it is I'm trying to do. So, okay, so we go in here and put that in. That's a little bit of the rock that's coming in. Let's just add a wee bit of a point here. What do I have that's still wet? So put that in. It's going to stop up there. So I'm kind of annoyed because I'm coloring over my other green that I liked already. So the brushes are perhaps too large. And this is a skin color, or a sea color back in here. River color. What am I saying? All right, toss that baby in there. Let's get rid of this. That's just a piece marker and it takes out the white. So now I want a small brush to take in the sea color here, but I want the sea color to be light again, remember? Or the river color. Just going to get rid of this little baby. It's not going to work because what I'm doing is pushing too much of the paint around. The green is coming out. Whoops. Didn't intend to do that so dark. Okay, and a little bit of, no, I don't want that. I want a little bit of the sap green in there, but very, very, very little. Okay. I was up in here, wasn't I? Just a little tiny triangle. You may not even see it or notice it, and it's not going to gain any kind of importance, but it's there and it defines the shape. And everybody has their use. True. No matter how small, you are important. So I'm going to paint this watercolor back in here. And note, again, my strokes are not doing the horizontal thing I mentioned before, but I'll come do that after I get, there we go. Let's change the function of that here. And now I don't see a difference between the background, which is getting a little too greenish, so I want to put in a wee bit more of the umber. And leave that with there. Now, let's put a little bit more of the sea color up here, or the river color. Goodness, why do I keep saying the sea? I love rivers. Alright, so we're going to need some river color, anticipating to be efficient in here. And actually, I'll probably, if I really want to be efficient, just cover the whole thing. Because I can see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1... I had 2 leaves coming down here, didn't I? And then I had kind of a finger jutting out in here. So I've totally repainted into that. So I'm giving up my original drawing. Alright. It is what it is. Let's give some watercolor up in here, because I don't really know how wide this river was, but... And let's put a little river color up in there. Now, this river color that I'm using is really cleverly called raw umber and white. And I don't have as much chroma as I want here because it's going off in the distance and that can just fade away as far as I'm happy to do. Alright. So, let's just sort of blend this out here. Blend this out here. We can totally go into some of these leaves. I don't want to lose all of the drawing because I am trying to do something. Alrighty. That's the branch, that's this, that's that. Maybe a little river color behind this rock. Outlining the shape of this rock here, which is going to be going in a little bit more this way. And I must have wiped off some of that before, so I'm going to go ahead and fill this in and get it a little bit nicer into the, oh wait, yeah, that's obviously where I scraped off. Now where I scraped off some of these, I don't want the texture of the palette knife scraping to come through. So I'm going to add a little bit more white into this paint and paint a little bit thicker there so that I can cover up those scratchy marks. Because the odd thing is it may not show up in the painting when you look at it, but I have a feeling if I photographed it, it would show up. So I'm going to fix that dandy now. Use a little more paint, fill in some of those grooves, and let the color speak for itself. So, and again, I know I'm going to be going back over this, so although I don't want to make it sound as though I'm going, oh, put it off till tomorrow, what you can't do today. It's not that. It's having the experience of knowing that I like to build up the layers and understanding what my process is that I like to do so much. There's a wee bit of a halo right there, and I may like it, but I tend to think not. Okay. Painting in glare is never an easy thing either. Let's just knock this down in between there. Doesn't really serve anything to see white rock, so let it make it. Okay, let's pull this away. I don't mind that little bit of white coming through from the texture of the board. That's kind of cool. And for the moment it doesn't bother me enough to want to do something with it. Okay, and then this, soften this edge a bit. Oops, didn't want to put green there. Yikes, my leaf is bleeding into the river. So put some more umber there, get rid of that. Let's do that. But I was just trying to get rid of, soften something I didn't want. All right. Now, the light's coming from here. However, the stem of this plant is totally in shadow. And I think what I'd like to do to give it a wee bit of something, I should probably keep it on dark on this side just to be consistent. And then again, because this is the dark side of painting of a cylinder, this line that is inside the actual form of the cylinder needs to be a soft edge, because otherwise it looks like the cylinder is actually a four-sided tube. So I don't want that, so I'm going to push that softer here. Okay, so now to clean up a little bit of a mess here, go in on this side and get rid of this, soften this brown. I mean, I'm probably going to go in and paint leaves right over it, so I don't need to worry too much about that, but I want to, and then pull this back down in here. Get rid of that. Okay, I kind of don't like this being a double thing right there with the light, but I'm going to, it's not an important critical thing at this point because I will have the ability to go over again. I'm going to get rid of this little, I find that distracting, that little where it hasn't filled in the grooves there. And this can be dealt with. It's pushing this green out over into the ocean color, keeping it kind of around. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm going to get rid of this sliver of paint because it keeps catching the light, even though I've got an extra light over here because my particular setup is casting a shadow on the canvas and on the wood, and that's just making life difficult. In fact, the photographs are all going to come out showing that shadow very much, and I thought to try to just move it and just give you whatever, but I really like this height that I'm working at now, because my back is straight when I'm painting, and even though it's on a little stair step, this easel is not designed to be a painting easel. It's designed for exhibition of a very specific piece. One of my favorites, actually. I wish I could get my own copy of it. The shield, the bronze of a man's chest. It's glorious, I think, if I can say that about my own work. Okay, so now I'm sort of dawdling. And this side too. Stand back and take a look. I rather like how this is developing here. I think I'm going to refine that shape to make it a little roundy round at the top there. But I'm getting lost in things, and again, I need to stick to the big picture at the moment and not get into my little fairy fantasy land. So I'm going to try to keep going on there and fill in all the rest of this. So maybe I won't talk, and maybe I'll do some painting. Oh, what a classy idea. All right. I'm going to work backwards into this for a bit. So I want to say, getting it right about here at the height of the hair. I have a finger coming down. I don't want to make the pattern so that it's a total circle from a radius of here and here. So for example, this leaf comes out to about here, the circle. That means when I come over to this point, I don't want to have a point going right here, okay? And if I get to this point, I don't want the point, let's see, where was I? I already lost my measurement. Okay, I don't want the point to come here. So I don't want it to come down this far. And that means I'm going to stick a leaf inside of this to the left of this hand, but below his hair, but not too much, because see, I've got this one going into dark hair here. So I want to make this be enough variety of change and compare it to the rock. It should be up a little bit high like this. And I see there's my line from my original drawing. Do you see that? So I'm going to come right down here and make a curve, because I'm doing circles again. And thinking about doing this. So now I'm looking at these. What were these going on? Okay, these are these other two. And they should, but I'm thinking I made those in the wrong space. So for a little bit, I'm going to just draw the outlines and not color things in so much. Okay, but this came forward and below. And see, I want to get the roundness in there, so that's a bend point at the top. And this actually overlaps this. So let's pull this in more this way, or actually pull this out a little bit. Don't want to get it too far down, but I do want to round this point a little. However, I don't have any clean brushes anymore. Oh yeah, that's a clean one. Take some spirits here and get this to really start curving in a circle again and have it go back this way. Okay, These are all design choices, they're all personal choices. So there is no necessarily rule that I'm following for anything, it's just my aesthetic choice. And you will make yours, I'm sure of it. Okay, so where's my cleaner? I'll go pull this back again. It's fun to draw and paint, but I have to say I really enjoy charcoal. Okay, so let's take this clean. Am I standing in front of that? I hope not. Okay, I want to make that lighter, add some yellow. Make this a little bit softer here. Oh, I don't like that yellow. I wanted it lighter, but and not so. Okay, but I have one leaf, I have the two leaf that drops a little bit lower. And coming in from this direction might be easier for this. I think this one's probably behind it. So pull this. And then come up here and do the curvy. And then this other one, I think it's in front and hanging down. And there's a branch. This could actually be considered another leaf. Oh goodness. See, I don't really see what I'm doing here. So that's going to be another leaf coming in this way. That's going to be darker. Then I have that. A little lighter. Oh, that's what it is. I have another branch coming out over there. So, let's get this. And we'll just do this coming down. Oh yeah. So what it's doing is, let's get this to come down here to these two. Emerging from the others. Put a little bit of light in there so I know what I'm doing. So remember that it's actually a thing. All right. Let's take a dark. Color this in. And I want to put a little bit of a gray into this. To be quite, I want them to be more twins and not so equal, so. Yeah. So it's interesting filming with a phone in video mode because then I can turn around and it's like having a mirror in my studio I can look at the artwork and go, that's how it looks from the reverse. It's kind of, yes, that's good, no, that's not good. How many paper towels can a girl go through? Whoops, drove that into my rock. Didn't want to do that. I want the rock to remain a rock. That means I don't take the rockness out. Okay, see, and you can see that when I did the mineral spirits, it took even this stuff, took it back to the board because it wasn't thoroughly dry and okay. So, alright, so I'm getting my twins here. Lighten that guy up a little bit more at the top there, just for variety's sake. You can kind of gradate down into that. And this maybe to distinguish that there's another leaf right there. Alrighty then. I really see the rest of this as sort of a solid thing, but I think I don't really see what's going on there, so I think what it's going to do is I'm going to keep playing with this. Put a little bit of a blue-green into this back one here. I may want that to be river cup, but I'm going to stand back and take a look. So yeah, let's put this as a lighter bluer green, and again I may have to tone that down again because it's a little bit bright, high chroma, and that's not going to help me tell my story. And do what I did on this other one. Oh, it's, I wanted that sweet brush. Hey, wait, what's that? That might work. Nope, too yellow. Okay, let's put some of this. Now, come back and slender this branch down because it doesn't need to be that high. It doesn't need to be that thick. It's at the end of its tether. Alrighty then. So now maybe I put a little more yellow, a little more green yellow into this one here. You see, that's just too much drama difference. It wouldn't be like that at all. So I'm just going to work on getting my shapes done and then stand back and take a look at the shapes. And then while the paint is still wet, I'm going to go in and change the colors a little bit so that I get closer to something that makes me happy. Stick to the rounded kind of thing again. And let's go up here, make this sort of that same kind of thing. Is the leaf being the solid color and this sort of dappled light, it's not likely to happen, but it is likely to be kind of boring. So right now I just want to get something on there because it's hard to judge something if it doesn't exist. Quote me on that one. Alright, put this maybe I need my olive greens at this point. Would that be true? Yeah, that could work. No, just don't deal with it. Covering up that branch. And then putting this in here to be uneven. And then do a little curl down into that point. And then I want to do this thing here. Now, I want a thin piece to give me a leaf in perspective. I want a little bit of bluer mixed with the green. All right. This leaf is going to be folding out at us. So that's going to make it kind of boom and then flat on the top where it folds backwards. And this one, you can see a little bit more of its personality. And it is doing, I'm going to be too contrasty here, but it'll help me remember it now later. Oops, that's too much contrast. You know, I don't need that kind of dodge to my memory, do I? Just pull that in. Wipe that over it so it goes over it. See how I'm liking this. This leaf will be fine if it's not left alone. So I want to take a brighter and connect this to another. See, I'm a little bit all over the place with the greens, but I'm going to have to see how I think about it because I don't feel like there's enough continuity and it's supposed to be the same branch in light. So yeah, there's a point where my desire to have the white covered up and to start developing the forms needs to be in line so that I don't get ridiculous and again, this is not the focal point. So once I put in a high chroma green like this, I'm making your eye, do you see I'm making your eye go right, boom, you go right past these gray greens that are here and you go straight up into the yellow warm kind of colors. So that I'm going to have to be controlling, but I don't mind having a layer between the twos and building up these things. Right now I want to get the shape in again. Okay. And the thing that strikes me as the most ridiculous now is that I don't have, it's this little weird hooky shaped leaf because I don't have the thing overlapping it. So I want to come in, I want to make a lighter silvery sort of thing. I don't want that cold. I want to go back to my umber white. Okay, I don't actually know where I am in my design because I don't see a lot, but I'm just going to stick with my drawing at this point. And then go there. And again, I'm having a hard time ticking this point of thing with the angle. balance myself with my pinky finger there, and then pull this round. You see how easy that is with the left hand, whereas with the right hand it's an awkward going backwards. Lefties won't feel sorry for righties for this, because so many teachers, even in my generation, were so busy saying, no, you must write with your right hand. Even if for a left-hand dominant person, that's really difficult to do, because, you know, when our bodies don't work as what's considered the norm works, we end up having a bit of a complex, because people try to force us to be, well, like them. It doesn't work all the time, does it? So, should I have another, maybe I should have another leaf coming down into here. So, that would be an interesting trip, wouldn't it? I don't like how golden that is, so I'm not really going to want anything that high again. So let me go ahead and mush this into a different tone or color that's not so high up in this contrast here. And how do I want this leaf to go? Maybe I want it to go cover up all this space in here. So when I'm painting something like this, I do have my reference, but I'm using the reference, of course, but I'm not glued to it. And I'm thinking more about what I know from observing trees, and as far as how they grow and sorts of things like that. And trying to make something that is quite believable. So the leaf is going to come back down here behind this other leaf. And then, do I want it in front of the rock, or do I want it down into here a little bit? Maybe put it down into this side. I've got a brush that's far too large for that, so let me take this. Let me step back a bit. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. I think I'm gonna clean this up here. Be careful not to touch stuff with a dirty finger, because then I will be repainting even the parts that I didn't think I was going to have to do before. Alright, let that miss that. It can be a little bit vague, that's okay. Alright, so I want to go in with a wee bit of a darker. It's probably too dark, maybe. I haven't done that yet. What I don't like is I've got too many fatties going on here, and I don't really believe that I'm seeing that much of the face of them, so some part of me is thinking I want to do something different, believable, but I don't quite. Maybe I need another leaf starting here. It goes in over the front of this one and stops. It goes in behind this one, perhaps. And I should allow some points in there, because if the leaf is turned sideways, that's how it's going to look. Right? Not sure that I like that, but what I am liking is some of the negative space that's happening at the top, giving more light as I go back into the background. And I can see that the stone on the left, the top left, is going to need to be darkened in tone because this is too high contrast, but I like the darks that I've got here. So yeah, this is developing. Maybe what I need to do in here is to kind of fill in some of this space like this. And see how that goes. It's less because the thing is that these shapes that I've got left here, they're kind of interesting, but I want them to be different. So it's actually kind of working for me now. Yeah. So I think what I'll do at this point, let's see, what do I have here? I have near the center top, I have another leaf coming out. And I'm going to continue for a bit longer then. See, I keep changing my mind. I don't necessarily want to have an obvious thing of him pointing to the subject, and so I'm going to do that and let it point in. Maybe it should point into the lollipop or something, but for right now, let's just do this way. I can change that point once I step back and take a look. Alright, so you've gotten an idea now of how I'm developing these leaves, and before I leave this section, what I would like to do is knock down the contrast in these two, pull out some dark up in here, and probably knock back the high chroma of these two green leaves that I told you about before. And then I'm going to fill in this space with the river color to knock down the white and put everything kind of in a context. Although I'm liking this lighter here stuff, and I can see that back up in here, outside of my original, if you can see that out here the river is actually in light. And so it's gotten lighter. I may be able to use some of that to put a little bit of interest off here. However, again, it's not the star of the show, and I want to make sure that I don't send people out of the painting, okay? But there's obviously a big contrast between making a really high contrast section and having a gradation go away, and that's what I'm going to try to work on. Okay, thank you.